Hey, what's up everybody? It's Kellen here from Start Your Systems again, and welcome to another Monster Energy Supercross, the official video game, career mode gameplay, round number 2 of the 450 season at San Diego. And you may have noticed that I just let these guys get a little bit of a head start as opposed to the last video at Anaheim where I believe I took the whole shot and checked out. Well, I was told after the last video that I did that, you know, obviously speaking, the 450 class is meant to be a little bit harder in this game. And if you let them go a little bit, they're quite hard to pass. So I'm actually going to let these guys kind of go back by me again. But this is the whole 20-minute main event here. I won my heat race. Just barely actually beat Ken Roxon after kind of a lengthy battle. So kind of want to give these guys a little bit of a head start here. Not crazy. I'm not trying to give them a whole lap like I did in the 250 class. But just give them some room here, like maybe fall back just about 10th here by the end of the first lap, and then see if I can't make it all the way through the field again. Let Mookie go. And let's try to get to the front of the field. Like I said in my heat race, I was actually trying, like I was putting in a lot of effort to stay with and then eventually get Roxon at the end. And it was tough. So I will admit that, you know, that whole theory of once you're behind them, they're kind of hard to pass, being kind of accurate. Much more so than in the 250 class. The 250 class was ridiculous. It was, I mean, I would already be in the lead by now probably in the 250 class. But you kind of have to race these guys. You have to think about your lines a little bit. You have to set them up. Like Roxon, for example, in the heat race, I just accidentally took him out, but I was trying to like square up underneath of him to get a drive out of the corner. Otherwise, there's no way I would have passed him. Because these guys are just like, they're able to carry their speed better. I don't really know what they do differently. It just seems like overall they have more speed. And yeah, they're definitely a little bit tougher. So kind of a cool aspect, because I know I complained a little bit about in the 250 class how easy it was, and that's kind of lame that, like, yes, for a casual gamer you want to make it, you know, even on the toughest difficulty, doable to beat on some level. Kind of like, I guess I could relate this back to, like, I'm not very first person shooter savvy, but I feel like given the time I could beat like veteran or whatever the top mode was on a Call of Duty game. Like if I sat down and tried to get through it, it was tough, but it was definitely more doable, where I feel like these tactical people that are just really good at, like, say COD or other FPS games, they probably just slay on those modes, and they probably start the game just straight off on that, like I do in this game, where like I started and immediately went to realistic difficulty, and I've just learned the game on that. Whereas, you know, as casual first-person shooter gamers like myself, probably pick up a Call of Duty or a Battlefield and go, let me try it on normal first in the campaign mode or something. And I don't feel that that's like necessarily the exact comparison here, because I do still feel like these guys are quite easy to beat, and even the average person should be able to beat them without much of an issue. But that's like the closest thing I can gather, is that, like, for us core moto fans that like motocross and stuff, like, this all comes a little bit easier to us, whereas those, you know, hardcore COD players that maybe aren't racing savvy or anything like that might have a tougher time actually doing well on the most difficult aspects of this game. Like, you know, myself and other, you know, big time motocross fans know when the appropriate time to scrub is, when the appropriate time to, like, check up in order to be able to do a jump section properly is. Another COD comparison I have here is that, like, I'm one of those idiots that, especially on online mode, I would just, like, run out into the middle of the field and try to get as many people down before I got downed, which is terrible, because if you ever watch, like, the smart players, they know all, like, the spots to go to and to wait for people to walk through and stuff like that, whereas I was just like, I'm going in, I'm sending it. These people that pick up the game and maybe don't know how to play a Monster Energy Supercross, for example, might just be like every jump, every single, every corner, I'm going to just scrub over and over and over again because clearly scrubbing is fast. James Stewart taught me that scrubbing is fast, so I need to scrub everywhere. Whereas, like, that's clearly not what you should be doing. Like, some of these sections I've even had to check up a little bit to seat bounce sections. Like, especially out of the second corner, you have to kind of, like, slow up, double in, and then I would say seat bounce to get over the second table, which I still can't do very cleanly. The rest of this track is hellaciously dumb. This is one of my, if not my least favorite tracks that comes with the game, because I hate how they tone down these rhythm sections. Like, that whoop section doesn't even exist. In real life, this rhythm section was actually fairly evenly spaced, whereas in this game, they're like, let's make it so you absolutely have to hit triple through here, which is what they were doing in real life, so I guess, like, I get it from that sense, but I wish they would have at least left the options open to us, so maybe we could have found a different line that was cooler or something like that. And some of the other tracks in this game do that to sections as well, but I feel like they leave it a little bit more open to interpretation. Like, Dallas comes to mind, for example, where they make it pretty, like, standard. You go, like, double in, double off, and then triple, I think, through the rest of the section. Whereas, like, I've played that track, and I know you can triple in and then, like, tire tap the next jump and triple again and, like, do some different sections through there. This one, it makes it impossible. Like, even if I tried in this next rhythm section after the whoops to check up and do something different, I think it would look terrible. So, like, let me just show you what I mean by that. Like, if I come out of this corner, I'll double in, but let's say I want to, like, double here instead, and then I have to double again to double again. Like, I'm going significantly slower. It didn't look smooth. I don't know. I just wish they would have left the spacing a little bit more normal. That one you can tell they tampered with. They talked about 3D scanning these tracks at the events and such, which I believe they did. But I almost feel like with this one, they did the 3D scan, and then they went back and said, no, that section down the first baseline of the stadium doesn't flow very well. Let's make it have its own flow. And I don't know. I don't enjoy that particularly, but it's one of the few tracks that does it. I feel like most of the other tracks have done a pretty good job of leaving the sections pretty well unchanged so that you can kind of make your own sections. Like Anaheim 1, for example, the last video that I did, does a really good job of that, where it in that one rhythm section after the Supercross triple coming down the third baseline of the stadium, you turn around and I think I showed you guys maybe 3 or 4 different lines you could do in the last video I did through that section, where like you could single in and then double, triple, or you could double, try to triple on off, or double, triple, just a couple different things in those rhythm sections, and I like that. That's part of the fun of Supercross for me. I think a casual player is just looking for the fastest way around the track, period. But us moto fans, you know, we like a good rhythm section, right? Like, it's part of the fun in straight rhythm is those guys finding different ways to maybe attack the same section. And then, as it is Petco Park, and this is practically my home away from home. For those of you that don't know, I live in San Diego. And as a lifelong San Diegan, I am also a lifelong San Diego Padres baseball fan. And yeah, I know, they're trash. Don't worry, I'm not one of the weirdo fans that thinks the Padres are actually good. I know they're trash. But I still enjoy the team, and thus I have season tickets to the Padres. And so I go to this stadium probably somewhere in the area, like including Supercross, of about I think last year I went about 35 times to Petco Park for games, for Supercross. We have the option to sell some of our tickets as well, so we do that. But I know this stadium pretty well, and I think it's rather funny how they called this stadium San Diego Stadium, which makes me believe they couldn't get the title rights to Petco Park for some reason. But there are still some like very like glaring things about this stadium that stick out as, you know, it's still Petco Park. Like they didn't change the stadium all around. It's very much the same dimensions and everything. They have the Western Metal Supply Co. building. When I turn this, I'm coming down the first baseline right now, and when I turn at home plate here and come down the third baseline, you see the Western Metal Supply Company building in front of me. There's actually a bar on the top deck. Well, not like the top deck, but the third story of that building that's pretty cool to hang out during the games, and then the 2 levels below it are suites. But this is the stadium that, because I go to it the most, I feel like I can pick apart the most. Like, I can look at the downtown skyline behind it and say, yep, that building's there, or no, that building's not. Most of the buildings to my left seem to be pretty accurate, but if you turn this way, you'll notice there's a couple buildings behind the stadium, like right in front of me, like towards the top of the screen. Those buildings are definitely not there. There is it's a Hilton that's basically right in front of where I was going just now. Not that way, but this way, there's a Hilton. But you can't, I mean, I don't know this for a fact because I have been on the field a couple times, but I don't believe you can see the Hilton from there. So none of those buildings that you see behind the home plate area are visible from the field level. And then there's a new high-rise apartment going on, like right in front of us where I was just going, and those are there. And then everything out center field and beyond seems to be pretty accurate. So I think they did a pretty tip-top job of still replicating the stadium despite it being called San Diego Stadium instead of Petco Park. So I don't mind that. This track layout too was, I felt like a pretty good one for racing. This was, for those of you that don't remember, a pretty good epic battle going on between Roxon and Dungey that never seriously materialized. But Dungey literally stalked Roxon the whole race, and I go back to this race a lot when people will, I guess, put an asterisk next to Dungey's championship in 2017 by saying he's never really the fastest guy that season. It was always Tomac. Tomac should be the champion, blah, 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 blah. And I always go back to this race because, in my opinion, what Roxon did at Anaheim 1 in San Diego was above Tomac levels, except Salt Lake City. 360, landed it. What Tomac did at Salt Lake City was another level than what Roxon was doing at the first 2 rounds in 2017. But that being said, Roxon was really freaking good at San Diego, just as good as Anaheim. I went to both races in person. And Dungey stuck with him the entire time. Like, I really did expect going forward Dungey to, step up to the plate and start challenging Roxon for race wins if Roxon didn't get hurt. And obviously he got hurt at the 3rd round in Anaheim. But I go back to this race and I think, like, no, like, seriously, you guys don't understand how good Dungey was at the beginning of the season. And although he said it didn't, I really do think Roxon's crash affected Dungey in a negative way. He was already kind of in his mind thinking retirement at the end of the year, as you could probably tell. And he had just come off of that neck injury that he had sustained at Thunder Valley the prior year. And he sees how viciously Roxon got hurt and that the pace that they were going to. I mean, before Roxon got hurt, Dungey was riding to that capable level that he was putting out at San Diego. He was fantastic at Anaheim too. And Roxon was forcing the envelope to try to get around his teammate Seeley so that he could go after Dungey for the lead. And obviously, I think he was just, maybe getting a little bit too comfortable in that pace and then got bucked through the front end of the bike and obviously broke his arm in 1,000 places. But I think that crash did negatively affect Dungey because he never was that level again after that. He was never, I'd say maybe St. Louis later in that season, the race that Reed held him up as a lapper, was the closest I could think to seeing Dungey look similar to what I saw at this round at San Diego. But he just wasn't the same after that Roxon crash. And, some of it might be maybe a little bit of championship mode going into place for Dungey because he had such a massive points lead to work with. But even once Tomac caught him for the points lead, it wasn't like that flip turned or anything. So, again, kind of a little mini rant there. But, like, if you ever want to understand how good Ryan Dungey probably was going to be in 2017... and why I think that he still was plenty fast enough and deserving of a championship in 2017, you just got to go watch San Diego again because him and Roxon were unreal that night. I was sitting on the first base side looking down towards that rhythm section, but most notably looking at the whoops, which is always a difference maker in Supercross, and there were big whoops that night. Roxon was butter through the whoops. It was crazy how good he was because he would just set up down the left side every lap and hit his mark lap after lap after lap, and his bike was soaking it up just on pillows practically. And Dungey was losing time in the whoops, but you could tell about halfway through the race, he like began like committing to the whoops, I guess is the right word. And he was sending it into the whoops and keeping pace with Roczen. Like he would gain on him most of the other parts of the laps, and then Roczen would open it up a little bit in the whoops. And then towards the end of the race, Dungey was actually keeping pace with him. And it was a big reason why the end of the race was so like kind of eventful, where Dungey was going to look for a pass on Roczen, but then lost traction in the corner before the rhythm section I just went through. And Roczen ended up winning the race. But like that to me showed Dungey was ready to play that year, and I feel like Roczen getting hurt caused us to miss out on what probably was going to be a pretty epic showdown between those two, and then eventually Tomac, who obviously upped his game. But you know, that's case in point why Ryan Dungey is one of the best riders ever, is because he was capable of rising to the occasion when it needed to happen. He was so smart about knowing championship-wise what he needed to do. You know, that early in the season, championship's not really on the table, I guess, so he's probably thinking, like, the more times I can win early in the season when they're available, that's going to be huge later in the season. And you could see it. It's like his eyes lit up halfway through the race, and he's like, I got to go get Kenny. Like, I got to start picking it up in the whoops. I got to do this. So, yeah, that's my memories of this race and going to it and remembering Roczen and Dungey both looking fantastic in the whoops. And I do remember, and after this race, as is our normal race ritual, we always go to like a Denny's or an IHOP after the race, get some pie and coffee. And I'm sitting there, and I was kind of thinking about that whole situation about Dungey looking good, and I knew his consistency, and I turned to my friend Zach, and I was like, so Dungey's going to win this championship, huh? and I didn't really like, I'm not trying to over-toot my own horn here, but I didn't necessarily think that what would happen and would end up happening, like Roczen getting hurt or anything. But I was in my mind thinking, like, okay, Dungey's going to do just that, exactly what he did tonight. He's going to do that every week, and Roczen's going to have good races and bad races, and Dungey's going to win this championship because he's going to be the most consistent. And it ended up being Dungey being the most consistent over Tomac. But that was my true thoughts even then, of like, that's just how good Dungey was, man. Like, every time you thought, I've got this guy covered, it's like, nope, there he is, still just chugging along in second place, picking up the maximum points behind you. Oh, darn it, I can't finish fourth next week because Dungey's going to win and claw all these points back. You know, like, it's just, that was what was so good about Dungey, man. It was the consistency, the speed, a combination, the smartness championship-wise to know what he needed to do. So, yeah, San Diego last year. Oh, man. Well, I guess we have discovered that these races are still a little bit too easy. I gave them more of a head start, I would say, than was needed, and still kind of cruising through everybody here. Love to see the gaps next time by if they could show it. I'm not sure. 19 seconds on Roczen. So about what I had on Muscan at Anaheim 1, I would say. That's roughly the same. And I remember towards the end of the race at Anaheim, I started making mistakes, and those guys clawed back in a little bit. So pretty much the same. I guess maybe next week, next video or whatever I do, I should give these guys even a bigger head start. Maybe give them like 15 seconds off the gate and see if I can get through them all, because look at how many people I'm already lapping. And again, I talked about this in my Anaheim video, but I just don't feel like I'm that good at this game. Maybe that's just me being too hard on myself, but there's plenty of people out there that are better than me at this game, and the fact that I'm still not having that difficult of a time just kind of demolishing these guys week after week in career mode is a little bit of a bummer. But we'll see. Maybe they'll change it up in MXGP Pro, and then the AI will be too hard, and we'll be all complaining about that. It's always something to complain about. I've been getting a little bit of flack on my channel these last couple days, is a whiny little 5-year-old because I complain too much, but I don't know. What do you want me to say? Like, it's all sunshine and flowers? Like, I love this game. I love MXRS ATV All Out. They're both fun games. I'm not saying that I hate them, but if I find a flaw, I'm going to point it out. Why not? It's part of talking about it in a video. Right. Coming up to 1 lap to go, and I keep messing up this corner. I don't think I've cleared this Supercross triple clean in like 5 laps. Almost getting landed on by Freeze. I lit a fire under Weimer too. He's going after his teammate. Now teammate, I guess. Teammate, but not teammate last year, Malcolm Stewart. Like, Weimer was on JGR last year, but Stewart's on JGR this year, but then Weimer's not on JGR this year, so like they're pseudo teammates. They're both on Suzuki's last year. So there you go. Close enough. I hope you guys enjoyed this video though. It's been lots of fun producing these videos for you guys daily. And I have fun playing these games and talking about them. It's many fun. Such very good time. But if you guys liked it, please don't be shy about liking the video. It helps me out. And tell your friends. Invite your family. Subscribe to the channel, let them know what it is, and watch all of our other videos because there's lots of them out there. I think we're getting up over the 900 mark in the video range. That's quite wild. But thanks again for watching. We're going to have more stuff coming up, and I hope you guys will watch those as well. But for now, my name is Kellen, and I'll see you guys in the next one.